Hi, I want to talk to you about the new art and science of teaching, which is what I am basing my model of teaching after. I have been looking right at page 8 and where it sets everything up and using that as a guide in my unit plans and lesson plans. And I hope as the year progresses that I will get better and better at this and be more informed about how my units and lesson plans are presented to the students so that the students will ultimately grasp the content better and their real authentic learning will take place rather than just memorizing something and forgetting about it the next day. So that framework, we start off looking at all 10 areas. The first one, providing and communicating clear learning goals. I feel that in teaching music, many times the students come to me and they know they're doing music, they know that's what they're here for, but they don't necessarily know that they do have specific learning targets that they need to complete and scales to get through in music as well. So I want to be very clear in providing that to the students and making sure that they know where they're at in music and learning to set goals around their scales and also celebrating the successes that they have along the way. I want to encourage my students to not aim for just a 3 on every assignment, but really go the extra mile for that 4. And I really want to stop to celebrate those students who are willing to do that work. So that's something I'm going to be thinking about as the year goes on and as I go through this process and get better at. Also, next I would look at in my unit plans assessments how I'm going to assess. In my unit plan, I would put where I'm going to have those formal assessments at, where I'm formally getting information to see where the students are at. In music, I constantly informally assess. That's a part of almost every lesson. So that's something that I want to think about, be really purposeful thinking about how I do it. Do I always do it the same way or do I do it in different ways? Direct instruction is something you look at in your unit plans and lesson plans. The unit plan is the big picture view, of course, but I want to think about how I'm going to present that unit to the students. And every lesson will have direct instruction. How am I doing that? I know I tend to move sometimes faster than I need to, so I want to make sure that I really am chunking the content so the students are grasping it and really reflecting on when I begin my unit, how am I going to chunk that content where the students really are grasping what I'm saying and not getting lost in it. And then once I get past that direct instruction, the majority of the lessons will be about the students practicing the skills that they're learning that I'm teaching them. And I want to look at how are they practicing? What are the different ways I can engage them through that? And obviously in those informal assessments, that ties into here because I'm informally assessing what they know, and then we have time to examine their errors in reasoning and getting them on the right path to showing me that they know this and that they can complete the tasks I'm giving them. Knowledge application, I feel like a lot of things in music, especially with my intermediate students, they're more complex than what they're used to. The students don't necessarily get opportunities to write music and understand how music works. Of course, they know they like music, they like to listen to music, but what makes music sound good, and how do all the components come together to make something sound beautiful. So I feel like a lot of what I teach, a lot of the scales really address complex tasks, but really I want in this part to really give the students time to process that, because it's a lot to process and it's a lot to wrap their minds around. In my unit plans, I do want to think about all the different strategies I can use in my lessons. And this is something that, again, I feel like so many of these play into your unit plans and lesson plans. Unit plan is that broad, that big view where I know I want to use this strategy, and this strategy. But then in my daily lesson plans, I want to be purposeful about I used this strategy yesterday, so this strategy I'm going to focus on today. One thing I want to really hit big in here is number 19, reflecting on their learning and giving them the time to do that. That's something I would really like to focus on. The next component is using engagement strategies, and every unit I want to make a list and have goals in engaging the students, but then every lesson, am I doing all of these things under? For instance, I obviously always want to notice and react when students are not engaged. That's every single lesson. I want to increase response rates. I want to use physical movement in every single lesson. So for many of these, I want in every single lesson. This gives me a list that I can just look at to make sure I'm putting all of these things in and not forgetting something. Every day in music, every lesson is all about the implementing rules and procedures. We have the constant same ones, and just making sure the students keep that understanding of what they're supposed to be doing, and that I am holding them accountable at all times, regardless of what we're doing. If we're playing a game, the rules don't change. We still are following the same rules. All of this is lost if you don't have a relationship with your students. Above all else, the students need to know that I care about them, I love them, and if I can establish that relationship, I can hold high expectations of them, and I can hold them accountable to following the rules, because they know that I care about them, and it's not for, there's a purpose behind all of this. And I've talked about communicating high expectations. That's something that goes into every single lesson. There are, of course, the students who are easy to teach, where they automatically are meeting your expectations, but even pushing them a step farther, like, can you do more? What more can you add? And then pulling in those students who do struggle, who don't want to necessarily be in music, and engaging them, and showing that I do hold high expectations for them as well. I feel like this whole framework gives me something to look at in every single lesson. I feel like a lot of times as teachers, we do the best we can with our lessons, and we write out a lesson plan. We think it's great, but then we get to teaching it and it falls apart because there was something missing. We didn't account for taking time to implement rules. We didn't account for a student not understanding something. And I feel like if I look at this framework and all these components, and I am considering every single one of these in my whole unit, then I will have an engaging unit and a successful unit. I think in even all of my lessons, most lessons should include most of the 10 design areas. Some of them are going to be a part of every day. One lesson might have more direct instruction than another. Another lesson might have more of the practice, but I'm looking at that every single day, every single lesson, and considering what the students need from this. So I feel like this, the strength of having this and being able to look at this is that it will make me a better teacher. It will make my students understand better the purpose of what they're doing, and I feel like better learning will take place, that everything will be a lot more clear to the students. The one weakness that I would pull out from this is that at first it can be a little overwhelming. It's a lot to look at, but that's okay, because growing can be painful, and it's hard work. So it's really not even that big a weakness. So I think it's a very complete thing. I really look forward to using it to inform my lessons and seeing what results it gives me. So yeah, I just really look forward to this process. Thank you.